Hey good looking, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by and checking out this video. Today I am going to be duping the vibes of the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. It is currently available for pre-order and it's going to be her midi size, so it'll be $65. I thought for today I would hopefully inspire you and empower you to make some choices as to whether or not you truly want the palette and not feel urged to go out and buy the palette, since it is somewhat of a neutral palette, or seemingly so. We'll get into that later. And also it is the $65 price point, so it seems a little bit more quote-unquote affordable. Of course, affordable is relative. It's, you know, everybody's idea of affordable is different. But I wanted to bring today my rendition of the midi sized Zendo palette from Natasha Denona and show you guys what I'm going to be using as in place of purchasing the palette. So I have for you today to show off, along with some swatches here, the Natasha Denona duping the vibes of the Zendo palette. I'll be giving you guys some swatches and then some final thoughts at the end. And also I want to first show you guys, there's a couple of duochromes that are actually in this palette. So I wanted to show you guys what I picked out as far as duochromes for the palette. So let's get on over to that scene and check it out. Okay, so here is the palette that I've got started. And there's a couple duochromes, so I thought we would go ahead and take a look at the duochromes that I have in my collection and see which ones would best match it. Because with duochromes, you don't really get to look at a swatch and a shadow in a pan and see exactly what you would see in real life. We kind of get to experiment, look through things, and find what really works best for us. So on the screen, I'm going to put the shade that we're going to be looking at, which is Aura, which is 379 DC, medium gold, orange, red. I'm going to pull all the shadows. I've got a couple right here, but I'm going to pull all the shadows that I have from my collection, and then we'll just kind of swatch them up, see which ones we like, and which ones would best look good for the midi Zendo palette. So I'll go ahead and get that done right now. I just pulled some that I thought would look really good with the palette, and also that I really think kind of correlate to the shadows and the swatches. So the first one is Gingerbread. That's from Luxie Beauty. I'm just going to swatch it right here. Oops, this is more of a transparent. This is going to give like a pinkish vibe. I'm not sure I'm down with that. I think I'll go ahead and put that back in here. Then I've got, oh, it's one of my favorite, it's Dollface. And it's one of my favorites, but again, it's kind of a topper shadow. I might be able to, there we go. There we go. Then I've got the Monarch here. And this has like this rustic burnt shadow shift. And again, a little bit more translucent. Luxie Beauty isn't really known for extremely pigmented shadows. Their formulas lean more towards like a thinner consistency. That's kind of pretty. I think let's take a look at the Sydney Grace shadow though. This is Desert Sun, and I think this also gives off a duochrome vibe. I don't know where to put it. There we go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, in my opinion. I think this one gives me what exactly I want in Aura. So I'm going to go with that one. And it does give off a duochrome vibe. It's got like a burnt shift to it towards the end. Okay, so I'm looking for the shadow that's right here. I think it's the 387. It's Yama, and it's a duochrome, and it's a peachy bronze with a greenish gold reflect. In the description, or in the swatch, it just looks almost like an army green with a gold reflect, but I'm sure it's because you can't really see that it's a duochrome. So I grabbed some duos and multi-chromes, and I figure we will swatch those and see which ones we like. And then we can decide which one should go into the palette. So the first one that I have is Rocky Road by Davina. It's pretty, but it doesn't really have that much of a green shift. It's more of like a magenta shift. This is the Monarch. Oh, this one's a little bit softer. I don't know if you can see the texture in it. And then just for funsies, I did bring out from the Star Chasers from Davina, the Lynx shadow. I thought that it kind of had like a peachy undertone and then like the golden reflect that they were asking for, so I thought I would swatch it. Well, that kind of looks nice. It definitely doesn't look anything like its swatch. That's for sure. And then this was the only shadow I happened to snag from the Galaxy Dust Shifters. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but they have a couple, they have an entire collection, and then there's two of them. Centaurus is one of them, and another one that are available as singles, not part of the set. And I was able to get it, but I didn't get the other one before it sold out. But there it is. And I'm still not quite capturing this reflect, am I, folks? Oops. Let me just mix my swatches here. So this one has the most green in it, but I feel like I really like this one the best. Centaurus really packs the punch that I'm really desiring. So I think for that, I'm going to go ahead and go with Centaurus. I see some green. It doesn't show up on camera too well, but I'm extremely impressed with how it looks. And then up against the rest of these shadows, I think it looks beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to the collection. I'm going to finish up here, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Okay, so I have gotten a little wiser. Mama got a little wiser, and I'm not only looking at the swatches and the shadows in the palette, but I'm also going off of shade names as well. So now I'm mixing all three of those together and trying to marry in the shades as best as I can to get the most accurate vibe and description of the shades in the palette, and hopefully I'm just getting that much better at duping the palettes. Although that comes with a caveat, you always feel like you need to purchase more single eyeshadows, and on my channel I try to make sure that people feel that they are empowered to make the decision to purchase a palette based on their beauty desires and wants and needs versus feeling the heaviness of the fast fashion industry hitting the makeup world. So hopefully you guys are inspired by that, and if you are, make sure you subscribe to my channel down below. And let's go ahead and get into the swatches of the Duping the Vibes of the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. The first shade in the palette is Mindful, which is 374 CP. It's described as a medium cinnamon, and for that shadow I chose Dark Chocolate by Sydney Grace. The second shade in the palette is Luster 375M. It's a metallic bronze gold, and I chose Bronze to Perfection from Sydney Grace. I don't know what she put in this formula, Sydney Grace, but it is so metallic, so incredibly reflective, so incredibly insanely pigmented that I'm not sure you can even see that it is a bronze, and it's got a little bit of a gold shift to it. Balance 376 CM is a light medium caramel shade, and for that, surprisingly enough, I chose Sydney Grace's Tippy Taupe. And I didn't think it was going to be the one that matches, but actually the taupe portion has a little bit of a yellow undertone to it, so it fit with the caramel description, and it actually matched the swatch the best in relation to all of my Sydney Grace shadows. I'm not sure I would have chose Sydney Grace for this particular shade, but I did want to focus on my Glam Shop shadows, getting some use out of them, and my Sydney Grace collection, because I feel now that I've used Natasha Denona's formula a little bit more, that Sydney Grace and Natasha's formula are kind of comparable, I would say. So I did want to bring my Sydney Grace shadows out and kind of use some of them. Flow 377M is a medium silver blue teal, and for that I chose Glam Shop's Bora Bora. Bora Bora has more of a gold shift, not necessarily a teal, and it is a duochrome, but I felt like it was a very beautiful shade that complemented the bronzes in the palette, so I felt like that was kind of what I chose to put in the palette in place of a teal-like blue, because I don't really have one of those. Mantra 378 CP is a medium greenish teal, and I use Sydney Grace's Siren Call to dupe that. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's nice teal. It's did have to build it up just a little bit, so some of Sydney Grace's mattes work really well built up and dipping in a couple times, which just leads me to believe that they're really good shades to build upon. So Aura is 379 DC. That's the code for Natasha Denona, and for that she describes it as a medium golden orange red, and I chose Sydney Grace's Desert Sun. I definitely see a nice orange hue within that red shade. I think it fits really well. I really enjoy that shadow. That's why I bought it, and so I put that in my palette for duping the vibes. Vigor, which is 380 cm, is a medium muted red coral, and I use Glam Shop's, I'm just gonna have to show you guys the names. I don't know how to pronounce these in Polish, and I also am starting to realize I don't have any fonts with those particular characters, so I'm showing you guys the backside of the shadow so you guys can see it, and just go ahead and pause the screen and then you've got the names, because I actually don't have any fonts with those characters in them. I'll have to download one, but until then, just know I'll give you guys the back of the pan so you guys have the correct name of the shadow. Not really too much to say about that. It's just a really good red coral. Mine isn't really medium. Mine's more of like a low medium, and mine's more of a cayenne pepper, whereas hers is really a true muted red. Mine's a little bit more vibrant, but I kind of liked the more vibrant red, if you ask me. Relief 381 cm is a light medium pink coral. I chose Makeup Geek's Summer Lovin' for that. I thought it fit pretty good. This one alongside the shade Pastel Peach were a little bit hard to get right, and when I finally did find a couple shades that I really thought felt appropriate in those spots, I think they worked really well together and looked really good together in the pan. But this one right here, I did have some rounds to be able to capture a peach and a pink and not get too peachy and not get too pink. It was a little bit of trial and error in that regards, but I think I made out like a bandit using Makeup Geek's shadow, and that's the only Makeup Geek shadow I feature in here. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything in Sydney Grace. She kind of leans on the more neutral, muted side of shadows, so I had to kind of branch out a little bit. Next up, we have Equilibrium 382M, medium dark silver teal, and that's going to be a metallic finish, and I use Sydney Grace's Aqua Fever for that. I felt like it really just kind of fit the bill. It's a nice medium dark teal. I don't know if it has a silver hue in it. You just might have to look at the shimmer and see if you can see it, but I definitely think it fits the teal portion of it greatly. Breath 383 CP is a pastel mint. So CP is a cream to powder formula in Natasha Denona's palettes, and for this I just chose a powder formula, and I used Sydney Grace's Sea Breeze for that. And yep, you can see I have to build that one a little bit to get it to show up, and I think that's just the case with pastels. You kind of have to build them to get them to show up a little bit, but nonetheless, we've got a nice swatch there for you. You can take a look at it. So first shadow on the last row is Sense, and it is 384M, a metallic pink copper. I used the shade by Sydney Grace called Vamped. It looks more purple, but when I swatched it, it definitely gave off a copper vibe. The pink copper is what threw me off. You guys, I don't know if I'm going to put that in the swatch party or not, but it was one of those that it was pretty challenging to find something that matched the definition and it matched the swatch and the pan equally, or kind of met in the middle. I don't really find too many shades in my collection that really fit that bill. If they were coppery or bronzy, they didn't really have that pink undertone. So this was as close as I got. And I think it probably leans a little bit more purple, but I kind of like the liberties that I took with it. So we'll go with that. Next shade in the palette is Tranquil, which is 385M, and it is a metallic, a light warm rose. For that I chose Sydney Grace's Golden Strawberry. I think this is where, again, like I've said before, Sydney Grace really shines with her neutrals, neutral matte shadows, and her neutral shimmers and her champagne shimmers. That she just shines in that department. So being able to grab Golden Strawberry from my collection and use it as a dupe, I think is just going to give a wonderful, wonderful addition to this Duping the Vibes palette. By 386 CP, again, another cream to powder. It's a pastel peach. I chose Glam Shop's shadow that I've got on the screen here for you, and I felt like even though it was really powdery, it gave a beautiful peachy pastel vibe to the palette that I really enjoyed. And it's one of the only shadows that is lighter alongside that green, so I just really had to find something that also would look really good in the transition area, so I kept that in mind when choosing this shadow. Yama 387 DC, again the second duochrome in this palette. Now I will say this, Natasha Denona's swatches never really indicate the duochrome vibe because she builds her swatches up so much. But I chose Centaurus by Divina, and so beautiful. So Yama is described as a light peach bronze with a green flecky with green reflex, and Centaurus is really a bronzy peach, and it's got like a grungy golden green reflect on it, and I think it is actually marked as a multi-chrome. I was only able to get that shadow, but they have a Galaxy Dust Shifters collection in Divina's Emporium of Shadows, and someday I'd like to own the collection, but I was able to get Centaurus, and that one I felt like really added a nice duochrome, warm, shifty, zen-like zen-like atmosphere with that shadow. I just really can see myself putting that duochrome on with a little bit of peach around it and just going about my day. Last shadow in the palette is Zio, which is 388 CM. That's a creamy matte, and she marks it as a dark, dusty army green. For that, I chose Sydney Grace's General. I have quite a few dark green shadows from Sydney Grace, but I felt like this one was the most dusty dark green that I had, with no other undertones than the olive gray undertone, and that one hit the mark. It looks very similar to the swatch, and it looks very similar in the pan as well. So that is the shadows that I have added to my collection palette for Duping the Vibes of the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. How do you feel that I did? Let me know in the comments down below. And I just want to say, if I'm adding value to your day, please let me know in the comments down below, and also make sure you subscribe before you leave. I put out content weekly centered around single eyeshadows, makeup brushes that aren't Morphe, and sunscreen. So subscribe, and I can't wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye.